So I forgot which one of my scenes was the scene. So when you saw my background, you, yeah, that was fun stuff. So married lap time. Awkward entry. I make it awkward by starting up on the wrong screen. I make it awkward by babbling to myself without letting Amber take over or something. I just gotta shut up and stop mumbling. Amber, bring us in.
Hi guys. This is the Married Lab. Me and Jason get to talk about HeroClix together. That's not a patron hangout.
That's right. We don't get to do this very often. And like we said previously, Amber needs to be on the screen much more because, right? So, week in HeroClix has been pretty weak for you because you have. I haven't played
HeroClix since Worlds.
Yeah, because you had driving school, unfortunately, the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So I went to the EarthX pre-release, and I talked about it a little bit this week on the Meta Lab. And do not sleep on the Rare Fancy Dan and the Uncommon President Osborne. Do not let his name fool you because he's got a traded energy shield that gives him +3. He's also just got really good stats, and then you added the Professor Osborne or President Osborne. He's just ended up with an EarthX theme team as well because I got to use Luke Cage.
Yay!
Who is awesome because he's got an awesome Quake. His special Quake where he's like, if you're targeting more than one target, he gets either increased damage dealt to all targets by 1, as well as the ability to give him +2 attack. So it's either or. Sorry, it's not both. It's either or. But you do have to be targeting more than one character. And there's a lot of situations where I found either or would work. So if you're coming up around a bunch of guys who have invulnerable, that's probably the power you want. Or rather, the extra damage is what you want. But if you got a bunch of little guys, why not just make sure you're going to hit them, right? That's kind of the... Really, it's just a generally cool dude. I like him a lot. So, EarthX is actually coming out this week as a set. Mm-hmm. What are your big wants from our case that we're getting this week?
I want to get all the Hydra guys. That's my big thing looking into this. I want to get all the Hydra guys. I want to get the cool Spider-Man villains.
Do we not already have all the Hydra guys?
No, I feel like there's ones... I feel like there's somebody we're missing. Because I don't think there's only 4. Is there only 4?
No, there's a Madam Hydra thing as well.
Yeah.
That we don't have.
So yeah, I want to finish that off. And just get more Hydra guys so that you can actually make a team out of it. Because like, right now we only have 1 of each. And that's not...
And not including the Madam Hydra.
Yeah, and that's not enough for 300.
Yeah, because we ended up with the Falcon one, right?
Yeah.
And we ended up with the Sharon Carter one. And we ended up with the green one and the generic lady one. I believe that's all 4 of the main set, like, Hydra effect to increase stats ones. Mm-hmm. And then there's, of course, the Madam Hydra, who I can't remember what she does, but she does something neat with them. Yeah, so those are cool. Anything else you're looking for, or just that key points?
Yeah, those key ones.
Okay. I'm a little bit more competitive focused in it. I want that Venom. Both the Captain America Venom and the just standard Venom.
Just the Venom.
Just, I just want to be done with getting that symbiote because this is the other thing. There was another thing I wanted to talk about. We're still in pre-release season, which means the set doesn't come out officially until Wednesday. Some people will have it on Tuesday evening or throughout Tuesday. It just happens. And I don't know what the store rules are on those in general. And it's not my point to my position to tell them how to do their job, regardless of how they're signed and whatnot. How they are signed or to whatever.
Words. Things.
But I do want to discuss the idea of pre-releases and how the single market gets weird before a set comes out. You see, when you go to a pre-release, you are of a select few, a very small number of players who have in fact been allowed to go to a pre-release. As a result, there aren't that many figures out there, which then goes on to say, if there's not very many of the figures out there, but the demand for a particular figure is going to be fairly high, the supply is low, the demand is high, basic business says the price is going to be high as well. So, if you're out there and you're shopping for your HeroClix and singles in pre-release season, I got bad news for you if you're looking for either a Venom or a Captain America Venom or a Spider-Man Venom. They're going to be very expensive. And those prices are going to come down when more of them are out in the world, but not by much. And that's the thing about this is if people are able to ask a high price and people are paying a high price, that's kind of healthy for the game in the grand scale of things. It just means more people are wanting things. They want the stuff. You also, as a purchaser, should know this fact, so you can go around and say, I'm going to maybe wait until the prices come down. And if you're not a competitive player, you should not be in a rush for this stuff, because if it is a high price now, it will plummet the second rotation hits. And now, I mean, that kind of, it feels a little elitist to say it sometimes, because I'll say it like, hey, do it this way. But you're going to sit there and you're going to turn to me and you say, yeah, but why do I get left out? Well, because you don't want to spend much. And that's kind of the thing. It's like you've kind of created this barrier to yourself if you're not willing to spend the money for certain figures. And that barrier is you've got to wait until the price eventually tanks. And that's the thing. HeroClix prices. Where do they go, Amber? When the set rotates, where do the prices on those singles go?
Oh, they plummet.
Oh, they plummet right to the toilet.
They go to garage sale, fire sales.
Yeah. It's why I try to sell just before rotation, so as to, be able to get a certain amount or a reasonable amount of money, and not, totally tank out on my bottom dollar. But I do go below the actual asking price on a lot of the sources. So, like, I think usually around this time of year, February, March, is when I start selling them. And I'll find the prices and I'll say, okay, if this is the price now, if I'm not using this figure now, it's already kind of low, and I'm going to drop it down $10 below so that I make sure the figure is gone, because it's bad enough that we collect all the extras, like we accumulate as many extra figures as we do, because the problem with that accumulation is that we
show you guys the bins one day.
I keep saying I'm going to take a picture of the bins, and I don't, and I really need to, because it's shameful. The bins are just extra commons, uncommons, and in some cases rares. And the most egregious damage done to that was done by Avengers Infinity, which had the Colossals added to it. So that's like extra space. You should see how many Jakars I have acquired. Like, I could do an Aladdin conga line with it. It's pretty ridiculous. So, that's kind of a sticking point for me. Whereas oftentimes I hear people talk about it, I hear people complain about it, and just you have to look at it and say, if I'm going to want to purchase a single, I have to understand a number of factors. Is the set out yet? Is number one. If the set's out, okay. So skip step one. Step two, how much am I willing to spend on it? And is that amount high? Or is that any amount? If it's an open amount, go grab it, find it, whatever. If you don't want to spend a large amount of money, you do have to accept the fact that, one, you have to hope, you have to sit there and hope that the figure isn't good in competitive play, because that'll help tank the price a bit, or you got to wait for rotation. That's the best way to get the best prices on your figures if you're not a competitive player. A competitive player, on the other hand, like myself, or somebody else out there in the world will fully understand. We know that if we need a figure for our team, and that figure happens to be in high demand, or is very good, and is obviously very good, or is very popular, we understand our price value point that it's going to take. We're going to do our best to pay as little as we possibly can. We might trade out our butts or whatever for it. But as a general rule, we know that we're going to have to acquire said figure somehow if we want it to be a part of our team. So I don't know. That's kind of my stake in it. Everybody just calm down. Prices, high prices for the game are good. That means the figures are in demand and people want them. It's a little gatekeepy, I know, to casual players at times, but it's no different in any collectible game. If I want to put a really cool card in my Magic the Gathering Commander deck, but it happens to be played very commonly in either a standard deck or a modern deck, I have to understand that because there's a demand for it in those two formats, it's going to cost me some money. If it's just in standard, I know that come rotation, I'm going to be able to get my hands on it and be a happy man. But pre-rotation, I either have to accept the costs behind it or just kind of move on and find an alternative. And that's kind of the thing. And this is coming from I'm 99% of my Magic play is casual. I play Commander. I own a modern deck, but not a sideboard for it because I have to pay rent, oddly enough. And I play in a format called Pauper, which has influenced the creation of the Everyman format. And that's how I play. And Pauper is my competitive format. And like I said, I own a modern deck. I don't use it. So, I don't know. Amber is... You're usually my the parent on the shoulder who tells me not to buy things sometimes. So, I don't know. Where's your mind on the whole thing right now? As far as pricing and whatnot.
It's one of those things where it's been said before is that if somebody is willing to pay that price, let them. If it means that much to them to get it absolutely right then, and they're willing to pay what somebody is offering, then why not? Like, especially in this awkward limbo time between like pre-release and actual release, it's there's really no reason to like harp on anybody. Like, it's one of those things where everybody always kind of like gets mad at the person selling the figure, and it's like, okay, sure, but also nobody has to buy it at that price if nobody and nobody will if everybody thinks that price is too high. But if you got one person who's willing to pay it that much, then why not? Like, you can't turn around and be like, oh, he's ripping that guy off. It's like, we're buying little plastic men. It's all essentially a ripoff. We're not buying it for like 50 cents off the assembly line. Like,
yeah.
So really, like, we're the ones that set the prices. We can't turn around and be like, oh, that's a ripoff, when it's not like they're buying a booster off the shelf for like $15, because that's what our boosters cost here. For like $15, turning around and be like, here's this sealed booster that I just bought at the store for $25, give me $10 extra. It's like, okay, yeah, that's an upgrade. That can be a ripoff. But it's like, here's this piece that has no definitive set price. Let's create the market for it. And dude over here is selling it for $50 less. Okay, cool, spend $50 less, but don't turn around and call the other guy a ripoff because he decides to charge a different price for it. Like, until you get like a set retail price, which even then, what we go by, like Cool Stuff Inc. and Troll and Toad, they still have to set that price. They still have to decide what is a fair price for that figure. And like, I don't even know, that could be arbitrary. I don't even know how they decide their prices. So, and even still, that's not a price coming from WizKids. That's not an MSRP. It's just, hey, this is what we're selling this for. Come and buy it. Like, when it comes to the secondary market, whatever. Like, prices are what they are.
Did you ever hear the story about how PJ ruined the secondary market on the Joker by accident?
I didn't hear it on the Joker. I thought he did it for another figure.
It's a Joker ID card. And what he had done was he'd put the Joker ID card up on eBay for $200, not expecting to sell it. He put it up there for $200 just to see what would happen. Now, as far as timing, the first time that the Joker ID card was really out in the world was, I believe it was either the UK Nationals or Canadian Nationals. One of the two. It might have even been both, where like the Joker was only at those two tournaments. So PJ put this up just afterwards, and then it sold. And he was just like, wait, what?
Why did somebody buy this?
Who bought this? And then he asked the guy, like, are you sure? He's like, yeah. okay, but that immediately set a buying price, a purchased price, because as players and individuals, unlike Troll and Toad and Cool Stuff Inc., we use what we call the eBay sold listings. So what will happen is I'm going to sell a figure, and then somebody purchases it at the eBay price, and eBay is really close to what people are going to purchase things at. So if I use the sold listings, and PJ happened to be the only one that sold that Joker at $200, that's what somebody's willing to pay for it. That's what I can put my price up at, because somebody has paid that. And that's ultimately what people have to understand, is the worth on the secondary market is really based on what people pay. Mm-hmm. And like beyond a pack, packs have a manufacturer suggested retail price. We know that. We are expected to sell HeroClix packs at $15 a pop when you buy them from a distributor. Canadian dollars.
Sorry,
Canadian
we're
dollars.
talking in Canadian dollars.
So bear with us here. So when I purchase a $15 pack and I happen to get a figure who's a super rare, the pack may go up in value, assuming I decide to sell said super rare, or it also increases in value by getting that super rare. But there's no inherent value outside of until that box is open, and even then, it doesn't really have a value until somebody says, I will offer you money for that. Mm-hmm. And that's why people are willing to offer more on a higher rarity scale, because there's less of them out there and they need to acquire it. Now, sometimes people can get a little must-have-y, and as a result, feed the greed monster. Guilty. I have at times over-offered for a figure because I cannot wait or must have this figure for a team I'm building now. Unfortunately, my good friend Aiden is the victim of this on a semi-regular basis. He's notorious for just pulling a figure I need and having to deal with me all day like, I want it. What do you want for it? And then I'll offer him money, and then I'll offer him figures, and then I'll offer him some more money with the figures, and then he just does. It's like he's torment sometimes for me. It's like it's a sick pleasure he gets out of it, where it's like
he enjoys it.
He's got it. He's got it. Does he turn to you and say, "I'm gonna kill your husband"?
No, it's just Aiden. You know he's a joy. It's like, offer me more, Jason.
Like he pulled a Venom Gwenpool at the pre-release, complained about pulling a Venom Gwenpool, and I was like, what do you want for it? And then he wouldn't say what he wanted for it. It's like, well, obviously you want it more than you are letting on, sir.
This is also the guy that pulled, like, the World Breaker Hulk in front of you and then didn't sell it to you.
It's not even just a World Breaker Hulk. He pulled the World Breaker Hulk and Rachel Alves.
Yeah.
Like, at the pre-release, as the judge.
As the judge, where he wasn't playing.
Infuriating. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. It's some of our fun chats to kind of lighten the mood, as it were. Speaking of lightening the mood, tomorrow I'm going to break it down because tomorrow is a charity tournament. The Braden Chang Memorial Tournament at Eternal Games. It starts at noon tomorrow. That's the time I was given. I'm hoping. I was told by parties that is the registration time. If I am incorrect, somebody correct me now. So do not take my word for it. I'd suggest always be there a little bit before whatever time they say, if they don't specifically state a registration time. Because I don't know why I tried to dodge this window. This window is strictly coming from... Long story. Ignore me. I'm just going to go here. And here we go. So it's a HeroClix Braylon Chan Memorial event. This is being held at Eternal Games down in Detroit. I'm on the might be going stage of things. So I may go or I may not go. I'm not sure. It does depend on a number of factors, all of which are surrounding Mr. Tom Kerr. He's flying in from Dallas, but his flight got canceled yesterday. Long story short. But basically, what's going on here is tragedy struck the family of several of our local HeroClix players. Braylon Chan, nephew of Jordan Yang, passed away suddenly. This charity tournament is to help the family cover some of the costs associated with this great loss. It's always terrible to have such a terrible tragedy occur, but it's always great to see how the HeroClix community comes out to this. So it's going to be a rock qualifier event, which means it's a 300-point modern tournament. For entry, the tournament will be asking for a minimum donation of $25, cash only, and 100% of the entry fees will be donated to the family. And Eternal Games will donate an additional $5 for each player who enters. So all of your tournament fees are going to the family. As well, the store is putting in $5. So it's going to be a $30 donation comes from your entry into the tournament. And there's additional prizes and raffle prizes as well. I don't have a whole lot of details on that. I know myself, like I said, I am planning on making the trek out if things go correctly. And correctly being, Tom gets into town safely. Tom unburies his car and his car starts.
So these happened to get hit by a very big snowstorm this week.
Just before we had a massive polar vortex. So the past 3 days, for those of you in Celsius, the temperature has been -21, -21 for 2 days, and -15 today. And all that's fine and good until the wind starts blowing.
Then it's -32.
It's -32, -40. And people north of us, like Amber's sister up in Sudbury, what was it, -31 before wind chill?
Yeah, I think it ended up being like -42 for her.
Like, it was insanely cold. To the point where I took a bus down the street at one point and didn't regret it at all.
I had, what day, it would have been yesterday, the coldest of this week. I went to work in thermal leggings, knee-high thermal socks, and a pair of sweatpants. And I'm still, like, shivering while walking to work. I was like, this is bad. It's so cold.
Yeah. So, it was very cold. And as a result, because Tom has been out of town, his car has been pummeled by this weather. So,
even if he can bury it out, turning it on may be a hard task.
Fingers crossed. That does mean I have a early 6 a.m. Wake-up call. It's in... is it worth it to sleep sort of situation? I don't know.
He's really bad with these ones because he will stay up all night because he's like, well, if I sleep, I only get like 3 hours. I might as well just stay up. And then he does. And then he doesn't. Then he goes through these tournaments on no sleep. Some alcohol is usually involved. And then...
Never forget the notorious Ottawa WKO, where I got top 4... while I was still drunk from the night before.
And that was a night where, like, we had friends over.
We had a friend over.
We did not stop drinking until, like, 3 or 4 in the morning.
Ooh, no. It was later than that.
Oh, was it?
We were drinking deep into the night, and I had finished my last beer. I was like, I should probably think about going, oh, my God, Tom's going to be here in, like, 5 minutes.
Yeah, that was an intense one.
I stumbled my way downstairs. Tom's like, are you okay? I'm like, I'm drunk. Yeah. I'm going to sit in the back seat. And somebody else can attest to this, apparently. I was in mid-strategy conversation. I was like, yeah, that figure's good, but it's got a bit of an issue with the... That's what happened. Apparently, I just passed out. We arrived in Ottawa. I went to Tim Hortons and had a farmer's wrap, and did that ever taste delicious? By the time we got to in the top 8, I played against Jimmy, and Jimmy has every right to be absolutely pissed about losing that game because he played a full pointed Mephisto, and I had a Devil Dinosaur on my team, and the only thing left was my Devil Dinosaur, and I was down to the last set of Pogs. And Jimmy had like Mephisto and something else left on his team, and I was very close to, but not at the number 3 on the round table. But I don't think time was going to let us have that. Right? I'm not even kidding you. In my just stupor, I was like, I'm gonna lose. Whatever. I'm gonna charge your Mephisto with my drop bears. And I need an 11 to hit. I roll the 11. And he's like, I'm going to prop that. I roll an 11 again. I was like, I'm sorry, man. Roll blades. I felt equal parts bad, but not bad at all because of how many...
Kind of impressed by this.
I was just like, I was actually kind of complaining, oh, God, I'm in the top 4.
I just want to go sleep in the car.
I also want to point out, for as rough as I was in the top 4, it came down to a missed attack with my Superman. That's what cost me the game. I almost had it in the bag, even though I was half in the bag.
I also want to point out that when the guys do these random, let's drive to Ottawa for a WKO or a rock, this isn't just like driving to the next city over. Like, we're just outside Toronto. To get to Ottawa, it's like bare minimum, like 4 to 5 hours of just driving. And then they do like a 10-hour tournament, and then they drive home.
Tom drives home. Tom is a psychopath. I want to point this out. At one point for our patrons, we were considering making Metal Lab and Married with Clicks bystander tokens. I don't know whatever happened to it. But I'm not even kidding. What was Tom? Tom was the transporter symbol.
Yep.
Back when transporter symbol was a thing, of course. Because it was still a thing when we had this discussion.
Yeah, when we were making bystanders of everyone.
And mine was a special power that gave me flurry plasticity, but I only had an attack of 7. It was like 3 damage, 7 attack.
Like, conversely, them going down to Eternal Games where they are going to another country is like 2-hour drive. 4, 5? It's not a 5-hour. It was not a 5-hour drive when we went.
Okay, sorry. It's 3.5 to get to Windsor.
Yeah.
And like maybe 25 from the border. Okay.
Yeah.
So
like
3.5 to 4.
It is not as long as you guys traveling to Ottawa. Like, it is closer for you guys to go to another country to play HeroClix.
I mean, when you put it that way, it's like a conversation I was having with the guys at Worlds. Like, you know, there's parts of Italy that are closer to England, and there are parts of our country, or our province, are to Thunder Bay. I think we did the math. It's like an 8-hour drive to certain parts of Europe from Italy, and then like it would be 13 hours for me to drive to Thunder Bay from Toronto. So,
and it's like the only reason why it took us longer to get to like Pennsylvania or like Philadelphia for PAX this year was because we had to go around one of the lakes.
We didn't have to go around one of the lakes. Some idiot on his Google Maps decided he was going to... I was the idiot, by the way. Some idiot on his Google Maps put skip toll routes because when we're in Ontario, we want to skip the 407, right? Because it's incredibly expensive and unnecessarily so.
And it's really like the only toll route we have.
It's the only one I know of in our province at the very least. But when we get into like the States, there's a lot of toll routes, toll booths, all that kind of stuff. So dumb little me ignored or avoid toll routes on my Google Maps, and it took us on the way to Philadelphia, into New York, around New Jersey, New York to Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania to New Jersey back to Pennsylvania to get to Philadelphia. And I apologized so many times when we got back. It's like I'm an idiot. I'm so sorry.
I still never forget. There was one point we're driving on the highway and like there's turnoffs, and one of them is like Philadelphia this way, and then the other one was like
New Jersey.
Nowhere, New Jersey this way, and we're like, okay, well, Google's telling us to go to Nowhere, New Jersey. I'm like, but it says Philadelphia right there. I was so confused.
Yeah. So, there's always these adventures that come on these trips. I love the adventures we run into.
This is how we HeroClix.
So, I haven't heard from Tom. Tom should be landing any minute now. Yeah. Fingers crossed. Assuming he lands okay, I'll get some more details as the night progresses, but it won't be throughout the show. If you are one of our $5 patrons, if you want to check us out at patreon.com/MarriedWithClicks, you will have access. A link will show up on the patron wall to join our Google Hangout. So the call line is open if you want to join in. Just be a little patient as we get in, because you're going to find that our camera's off for it, because we have to do some flopping around when we do that. Anyway, carrying on with our evening, as it were. Traveling for this game, just these stories come from the traveling, and I think that's one of the beauties of it. It's also why I really like doing Move and Attack as a show. Which now that I'm thinking about it, if you check the link below in the description, Move and Attack has a form in which you can submit questions. We don't see your name on it, so you'll be completely anonymous unless you put your name on the question. And we answer these questions on the road for these events. Unfortunately, the trip we took to Pennsylvania, we
didn't film anything just because while traveling, we wanted to we needed to focus a little bit more on driving through the states than we do just going across Canada.
Yeah.
Like something we're a little more familiar about. Also, thinking about this because I've been recently going to driving school. I don't know what your guys' like state to state laws are for like distractions in the car.
What qualifies as a distraction?
Yeah, so like filming while driving may not be like, I don't really want to be on a highway somewhere in the middle of New York and get pulled over to just be like, why are you filming in your car? What kind of shenanigans are you getting up to?
Kind of a big fan of this guy's choice of music. Oh, Keanu is such a great movie. Wait, does that mean George Michael's not hard? No, man, he ain't street. Anyway, so Move and Attack, we have been accumulating questions for it, and I'm going to film that with Tom. So if you have a question for it, link below. Please, I will. Tom's voice is beautiful for answering questions, and I mean, we might answer 2 questions in the whole 4-hour drive. Who knows? Because it's me and Tom.
It's true.
What HeroClix players do you know, other than Adam Friedman, get compared to over answering than me and Tom? So.
Oh man.
Absolutely.
Tom will give you his whole life story and still be able to relate it to the question that you asked.
Oh, absolutely. He will give you the history of doo-wop music in Philadelphia while eventually finding his way back into the Philadelphia Convention Center. Even further, trying to find some way to add it to PAX Unplugged. He'll add a couple questions to me that join in so that he can add the information. So, I imagine the first question will end up giving a life story biography special on, I'm sure. I do wish I hadn't lost, when we changed computers over, we lost so much of that documentary footage.
Yeah, we had a lot of really great on the road. Before we started doing Move and Attack, we had a lot of really great just on the road, random, Jason just decided to turn on a camera.
Yep.
Kind of candid.
Stream of consciousness stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what the one I missed the most, though? Was me trying to convince everybody how absolutely delicious the Rockstar cucumber flavor was. Yeah. Like, nobody would believe me.
Incidentally, was the last time we went to Eternal Games.
Yeah. So that's the one I missed the most. That and all the murder room stuff from our first trip to Worlds. Like, this, just describing the squishing on the floor, the shag carpet in that room. And
Your floor shouldn't squish.
Oh, man. It's one of those things, like we were saying, traveling for this game has led to so many fun stories. I can't even think about it. Okay, so KJ says filming is okay as long as the person filming isn't driving.
Okay.
Cool. Perfect.
Good to know.
Good to know.
For future reference.
Well, especially when we get to question 4 and we are on our way back from Detroit with me and Tom. I'm sure we can figure out a way to no, I can't figure out a way to speed it up. I think the big concern will be music in the background because me and Tom do like to sing.
Yeah.
Driving with Tom is car karaoke, and it's a lot of fun. It's not kind of fun. It's so much fun.
It's so much fun.
I can't tell you how many times I've had so much fun. Just Lonely Island is kind of our thing too. We're singing along to Lonely Island on the way back from Ottawa almost every time in the middle of the night. Yeah. So that said, nothing happening in the live chat from the patrons. If you guys are chatting live, you have any questions, throw them to us. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about before we move to some of the questions we put out on Facebook, Amber?
Yes, actually, I did want to touch on, I think it would have been last week, WizKids put out a rules clarification.
Oh, yeah, you wanted to talk about this.
Yeah, and I didn't get a chance last week because we didn't end up being able to do this show last week.
No, we...
I know there was 2 of them, and I don't remember what the second one was.
It was Colossal Multi-Base Figures, and... Yeah, Colossal Multi-Base Figures, and the other thing was the starting area, the way they're expanding starting areas now. Because that goes in, like,
yeah, the starting
first.
area one is actually a lot more straightforward, and at one point there was a bullet point where they tried to cover a corner case found out they couldn't do it the way they wanted to, so they took that bullet point out. So now it's very clear cut in the fact that when you're expanding to fit your team, if it doesn't fit within the purple squares, you're going to go by the columns. Now, if you're not used to the terminology of it, a row will be like the small part of the map, so like the width of the map. And then the column will be the length of the map. I believe that is number by letter. Letter goes the long way.
Numbers, letters. So like you go by the letters first.
Yeah. So and then you expand that as much as you can until either everything fits or you run out of space. Yeah. And then once you run out of space, width-wise, then you can come down.
It does kind of change the way my monster team works just a little, but I mean, sorry. When I say I explicitly mean just a little because I have you're all another clarification. I don't know if this is true as a clarification, so correct me if I'm wrong. But now you're also required to put the biggest things in your starting area first.
Unfortunately, I did not actually read the entire thing, so I'm not sure if that was part of the clarification.
Well, I don't know if it's part of the clarification or if it's a rule that already existed, but I do know that it explicitly says that. I caught it this time.
That's how I've always ruled it as a judge, being like, okay, well, because it made it. This is going to be a very rare thing for me to say. It made sense to me logically. For you to put all your colossals down first and then your small guys, because if you put down all your small guys and all of a sudden you have these big giant bases, you're essentially gaming the starting area. Where it's like, well, of course that's going to push forward because you have these little guys taking up space that the colossals could easily fit. So like if you had, for example, if you had a team where if you put all the colossals down first and you need to expand, you'd only expand one row. But if you put all the small guys first and then needed to put down your colossals, you're expanding like 2 rows. So you're essentially getting more space out of, and that's, as I'm saying, this is when we were expanding by rows and not columns.
Yeah.
So anyways, you want to go outwards, not down. So the main goal of this particular clarification was that they wanted to make sure that you're not trying to get closer to your opponent by being like, oh, I have a big team, that means I get to start closer to you. And if your opponent doesn't have a big team, and it's like that basically takes that advantage away from them. So they're trying to like make sure that you're not messing with that, like that placement there. The other one I wanted, and then this is where we're gonna go back to that whole something making sense to me logically, because that is not, long story short, my brain is wired differently than the average person, so I don't think that way. So when they did the clarification for moving multi-base, it still doesn't make sense to me, because the problem that they addressed, yes, was a problem, but it wasn't my problem. It wasn't the problem that I had with moving multi-bases. So, I'm glad that the clarification is there. I'm glad that it cleared up the issue for a lot of other people. I still just have a lot of questions that have not been answered yet. So the main base of it is that they're trying to reinforce the old rule about not being allowed to swing butt on moving multi-base, where you basically pick your square, that square does its movement, and then you place the base based on just that single square moving, so that they can go down hallways and go through doors and stuff, and you're not going to get completely trapped by being a multi-base on a map that isn't open enough for that kind of movement. Now, they had admitted that the wording that they had used in the rule book, where they would say you pick one square and then all the other squares can't have moved farther than your movement, because they use the words move again, and in HeroClix, language is always very important, and move means something specifically in HeroClix. That's where a lot of people were getting tripped up on it.
Yeah.
Because they're like, okay, well, you're saying that these squares don't move, but then this line says that they move. So they wanted to clear up that part of it. Now, for me, what I would like to have clarified, and maybe if we're lucky, we can get a win answer on it, of whether or not the big controversy that came out of Worlds is a legal play or not. And that was that we had a 2x2 base that moved its 6 squares, but when it got placed, the top squares were technically 7 squares away and not 6 squares. But it got ruled as legal. So, whatever, move on. That's how it got ruled at Worlds. And that's the way it's been played, apparently. And it kind of created this big divide, too, in the HeroClix community where half of the players are like, that's wrong. The other half is, no, that's right. That's how it works. So, I was kind of hoping for a little bit more from this WizKids clarification and, like, maybe even an example from them. Or maybe even being like, hey, we know about this incident, it was right, or we know about this incident that was wrong, here's how it's supposed to go. Like, all of this clarification to wording is fantastic. It's great. I'm glad we have it. But without them saying, yes, this is right, or yes, this is wrong, I don't know how to apply all of this new wording to the situation that was causing this problem. So, but again, Jason thinks differently than me, so that could be something completely different, and he now sees it clearer now, or I don't know. I haven't actually talked to him about this.
We had a conversation about this at Worlds.
At Worlds, and both of us were on different...
I know, and that's the thing. It's like, we have to accept the fact that while in one direction I had to take the square that I'm moving and move 6 squares, the other squares were still only within 6 squares of the original position. And that's, I think, is what we need to know is that how that works, or should we be, because the other thing too is I moved the character in, like, relatively to the way that it's moving with the 1 square, and that's when everybody's like, oh!
It kind of worked.
Yeah.
But
then there's also the situation where we get that extra square because while I'm moving around the a little bit of blocking terrain, the other 3 squares aren't faced with necessarily that requirement because they're not officially moving. They're just being dragged with this other square, and that could lead to, when we get there, these 3 squares over here are still within 6 squares of where they started, but are actually, if you were to take a move action with those, moving like 7 or 8 squares. And that's where the, oh my gosh, this is out of hand goes. There's also the big problem of allowing diagonal movement. Like, this is one of the few grid games that allow diagonal movement, and as a result, that does cause levels of confusion in players. Hey, Fred's an old friend of mine from college, so how you doing, bud? But yeah, so that's generally how the controversy or the confusion really comes from, is, are those other 3 squares following the same move restrictions, or do we have to maintain like these squares have to be relative to where they were in relation to the square that's being moved? Or because that's the thing they want to avoid. When I say the words the other points of the dial should be in the same relative position, all of a sudden they go from the simplification of rules to back to the crap that we didn't want to have to deal with. And that is another thing that they're trying to avoid. So I see where everything comes from on either side of the equation. And just, everybody needs to calm down a little about it, because it's literally 1 square and the thing has giant reach. Come on!
And it's also one of those things where I will say this issue only really exists with the 2x2 bases.
Yeah.
Because anything bigger, or the peanut bases, the 1x2, it's very easy to see how when you orient those bases, you're taking advantage of it. So like, especially with a peanut bases, because this is basically where like that terminology came from.
Swinging butt.
Swinging butt.
This is a lengthwise thing. If I move, like, let's say I have a movement of 1 square and I move that 1 square, but then do this, that's cheating.
Yeah. And even the bigger colossal vehicle bases of like the 2x3 and 3x4 or whatever, 2x4s and the 3x6s, they have the same sort of thing because they're oval shaped. If they're moving and then all of a sudden they're placed like this, it's like that's very clearly an abuse of your movement. But when you have a perfect circle, then, and it's moving, but then kind of does that, and it's like, technically, yes, that is swinging butt with a 2x2, but it's easier to say that that's not happening, it's easy to get around that, or be like, well, you know, it's a circle, it's just spin it. Like, spinning the circle is a lot harder to, like, when you're visualizing it, than taking an oval and putting it on its side. So, I feel like had this been a bigger base, or a peanut base that this had happened to, it would be a lot more clean cut, yes, that's right, yes, that's wrong, than if you're just going around with this, like a circle. And I, again, like I said, I'm glad that this clarification happened. I'm glad that we're getting this communication again from them, but I would have really preferred having an example as part of that and being like, yes, this is right. This is how this works. Because now for me, which is, unfortunately, guys, this isn't why I'm not a judge anymore, why I haven't judged in a really long time, because trying to get a communication going and I talked about this last time we were doing the show, is that, like, the communication, unfortunately, isn't as present as it had been in the past, and it makes navigating these new clarifications and these newer rules a lot harder for someone, especially when you think a little bit differently than other people and you're like, nope, this doesn't make sense anymore, I'm done. But yeah, so I tried to talk about this on when it first came up in one of the HeroClix discussion groups, and I was like, oh, well, I want this clarification. I want this to say yes or no. And they're like, somebody was like, oh, they already fixed this, blah, blah, blah. And, like, it went on this whole, like, everybody chimed in of being like, they're like, yeah, we're good now. Everybody's good. This cleared up everything. And I'm like, okay, it really didn't, but clearly I'm in the minority here, so I'm not going to continue this conversation. That's basically all I wanted to... I think that was the only thing actually HeroClix I could contribute to this week.
Yeah, you read that article a lot more in depth than I did. I honestly, like I said, I'm just going to start doing my monster team widthwise. I do feel a little happy. This is that little thing. The little things when you're in competitive play. When somebody does something similar but different, and you kind of go around and say, I did something like that. His is just a little better, or he did better with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's kind of how I feel, because originally we were talking about the charity tournament earlier in the show, and at first I had planned a tribute team to the young man who unfortunately passed, and unfortunately there's no way I could build a team that, you know, I don't mind losing with a team. I do mind getting absolutely curb stomped. Like, I would, if I brought the team that I was originally thinking of playing, I might as well just put my teeth on the table and told my player to step. So I'm going to just dress appropriately is basically it. And I'm going to bring probably my monster team instead, just because for one, this decision was made. What time is it now? 10. So 2.5 hours ago.
As we do.
Because practice makes your team better, and I have to use a team that I have used, therefore I have got practice with it. That was the only solution I had for this particular situation. So, yeah, I'm bringing my monster team. I like my monster team, and it feels good that Tyler Spies, even though it's not the same, He did his own thing with it. It feels good to be on that right track. Great minds think alike, and his mind was better than mine. Though I think him and I have had in passing conversations about the. He actually brought up a question on the Metal Labs, like, "Hey, are you going to put your Venom Captain America on your monster team?" And I said yes. Yeah. I said yes. So, yeah, it's kind of is that it now? Are we good?
I think so.
Okay, cool.
And if it hasn't become very apparently obvious,
you're
I'm not
here?
going.
Amber unfortunately can't make. She did want to get a little bit of time to sleep in because she's been at driving school the past 2 weeks. Which
I have had to wake up at to go to work, I wake up at 5 a.m. to get to work. To go to class, because weekend buses suck and I had to go halfway across the city, I had to wake up at 6. So it's my usual nice sleep-in weekends, and the class had been Saturday, Sunday, Saturday, Sunday. So I've kind of been nonstop, and I'm really, really looking forward to sleeping in tomorrow.
I'm not. I've got to be up at 6 if I go to sleep. I'm pretty sure I'm going to bed today. I yesterday kind of stayed up a little late watching Gordon Ramsay. Honestly, I hate the man for what he did to make the restaurant industry so miserable for me while I was in it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, his newer show, which is To Hell and Back 24 Hours, has been a little bit more interesting, a little bit more intriguing, and a little bit more calm than your standard Ramsay. He doesn't walk in going, he reacts that way when somebody is hostile towards him or when something completely offends him. Dude, I how some of these fridges, just when I was in the industry, if there was the slightest smell, we'd smell it. And it's how is this entire moldy fridge? There's got to be some kind of planning. I don't understand. Anyway, so I was up late last night doing with that. So I'm probably going to go to bed a little earlier tonight. I'm probably lying to myself as well, though. Who am I kidding, right? I'll just make sure I'm showered before I go to bed. That's all. And just deodorize before I leave.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Smell good for other players. They'll appreciate it.
I don't think the HeroClix community is okay for it. It's not as bad as the Magic community is for it, or at least was for it when I was more competitive. Nowadays, I only show up for Magic tournaments when it's a pre-release or when it's Magic Fest now. They used to be called Grand Prix, but Grand Prix, you get a little bit of leeway because the entire room is full of dudes. And when thousands of men are in a room, it's going to get a little hot. So, not that kind of hot. So, that said, I guess we should move on to the questions that we had for the show. If you're live with us in the chat, put in capital letters question. We'll see what we can do about answering those. And why do I have so many Facebook notifications? I am not this important a person. God damn it. Usually it's very easy for me to spool these up and get them ready to go. But
Friday's a busy day for you notification-wise.
It doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't make any sense. And you know what the worst part is? It's they're in two different places.
Well, that's your own damn fault.
No, it's not my fault. It's because it's Facebook's fault, as a matter of fact, because I now got to start posting our links in two places. I don't know if you watch any other YouTube channels, but I'm sure they have the same Facebook problem across the board, where if you have a Facebook fan page, apparently not all the people who are fans of your page will get your notifications on a regular basis because you're not paying Facebook for that. So your best bet is actually to start a community group page, and then people can post on it, and you can post your links, and people can see them 100% of the time, so long as they're set up to see them. Ugh. It's a little slash rant on that one. All right, which one was first? Looks like Austin was first. All right, Austin Ryder is a local player, and we've had some things to we've had some conversations with him. We're going to be dealing with the chat right after we get done with the Facebook. So put in capital letters question before your question so we can see it in the chat, or put your question in capital letters like Andrew Jackson did. Try to avoid that one. That just makes a noisy chat room. All right, so Austin wants to know what named theme keyword would you like to see Debut or get new figures for this year, Amber?
This will always be my answer until it happens. Exiles. Always. Also, I'm very sad to discover this week, because I didn't realize it till I got to the very end page. The newest run of Exiles has ended. The book got canceled. They managed to do their 12 issues. They finished off their story, which at least they were able to do that. But once again, we have seen the end of Exiles. Now, the original Exiles ran, had a really good, ridiculously long run. You could see it peter off, though, once they got rid of a lot of the original main cast and they brought in a secondary cast, you can tell it wasn't doing as well. They tried to bring it back again, and that second series only lasted 6 issues. This one managed to get as far as 12, so we've had a wonderful year full of this new iteration of Exiles. And with it being back into the forefront, I would love to once again try and get Exiles into HeroClix. We have had some Exiles characters show up. The most frustrating period that we had was in the modern age of Invincible Iron Man forward, because we had 4. It was the most we've had in modern. We had 4 Exiles characters, and 3 out of the 4 were primes, so you couldn't even play them together. Which, that's a rant I'm sure you guys have heard me go on before. Jason's like, I'm so done with it. I don't want to listen to this at all. But yes, I would love to once again get Exiles. We got a bit of a tease with it in Earth X, where the prime Miles Morales, for whatever reason, was given Miguel's keywords, because I don't know if
for you guys who don't
Spider-Man
refer to your comic book characters by their real names.
Anyways, Jason just talked over me, so
I had to, because you refer to comic book characters by the first names, like people know that Miguel O'Hare is Spider-Man 2099,
but the
common knowledge.
In the comic book series that I read, that's how he's referred. He's not referred to as Spider-Man 2099.
But on the cover of his comic books, he is the Spider-Man of 2099.
Regardless.
He was Spider-Man 2099 before he was even Miguel O'Hare, because the cover you saw
that
before you opened the comic book.
That's how I know him, because I didn't read that series.
But that's how they know him.
Anyways, they screwed up the keywords. They gave him the wrong keywords. So now we have a Miles Morales with the Exiles keyword that shouldn't have. So, there's that.
I have a new answer for this every time I answer this question. I love it. It's kind of fun, because nobody knows what I want anymore.
I don't know what you want.
I mean, honestly, for the longest time, it was a bunch of Ninja Turtle stuff, and they've been providing. So I'm good with that. There are a couple of Ninja Turtles things they need to do still, but let's give them a couple more sets, if we get more sets. Star Trek they're nailing, so I don't have to worry about that. But, you know what comic Marvel just got its hands back on? Conan! So why not introduce the Cimmerian, Cimmerean, keyword, and just make up a bunch of Conan characters, because, big dudes, big muscly dudes with swords are awesome. Especially the less clothes they wear, the better. And
some of the chat is pull out. I don't know who. Yeah. Thank you. See, somebody else agrees with me.
I don't, Amber, because I know several people named Miguel too. So when you refer to them, and I also space out when you talk about your Exiles thing every time.
Look, just because you're a bad husband.
You see? Fred knows that he's Spider-Man 2099. Anyway, yeah. Conan, I want to see Conan's, and I want to see Conan Cimmerian keyword out of that. All right, next up, Michael Fedor, the Alpha, probably going to be the Omega patron as well. Here's a question from last week, idea. Does the Possessor mechanic with the Norman Osborn in the Foes of Spider-Man set work in the Everyman format? Are we limited to the number of Green Goblins we can use for this, or is this the Scourge? Okay, what did I do? I didn't allow... That was on. All right. Jeez. I have to actually remember that Norman Osborn and find out...
That was like years ago.
That set's about to that set is 90% deleted.
To be retired.
It's about to be retired, and it's
so much HeroClix since then.
2 figures are left in my memory for that set: the Amazing the Spider-Man, sorry, and what's his name? You know the guy, Devil Dinosaur.
I only really paid attention to the.
Which Norman Osborn are we talking? Is there a common Norman Osborn?
No, unless he's talking about Green Goblin.
Because there is a... Oh, yeah, hold on. The Green Goblin. King's Mastermind, blah, 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 blah. You know what? There's an easy way to do this. We go to Norman Osborn. This must be the most exciting thing to watch us search. No, the only Norman Osborn is an uncommon. So every man only allows commons.
At the beginning of the game, you may place a character named Green Goblin from your sideline onto this card at any click. Choose a power of that click.
But where I'm going with this is you couldn't even start with him on your force in the first place because he's uncommon.
Yeah.
And every man only allows commons.
He's not allowed.
No, Norman Osborn is not allowed in my format. Get him out of my format. What else? Excuse me. With the Norman Osborn in the foes in the Everman, are we limited to the number of Green Goblins we can use for this, or is this... So basically, the only Green Goblins you could use would have to be common, but the Norman Osborn you'd have to use in the first place would have to be common as well. Does the new set have a common Norman? No, he's uncommon. Yeah, so unfortunately there isn't really a usable Norman Osborn in the format. You may be getting me mixed up with that Pauper format that exists, and that is going to be causing me nightmares for the foreseeable future, I'm sure. All right, next up. I know I saw a couple questions, so I'm going to... KJ Foster still wants to know where his Drake is, and he's working his way up from the bottom, right from the bottom of the Degrassi show.
Oh, Degrassi.
He was on Degrassi. I think he was Wheels. I think it was his character. Or at least the new version of Wheels.
Was he?
I don't remember distinctly, but let me just find him right now. Drake on Degrassi, the next generation. Well, it filled in for the next generation for me. Yeah.
He was Kid in Wheelchair.
He was the new what we called Wheels, because there was a character on a wheelchair called Wheels in the original 80s Degrassi. So for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, I'm just going to go ahead and do this. There he is, right there. He used to call you on his cell phone like this. He used to call him on his cell phone, right there. That's what I mean every time I make a Degrassi joke in reference to Drake.
Oh, man.
I'm going to incur his wrath, or he's going to send Ninja and his guys after me.
I have a totally unrelated but funny Degrassi story.
Okay, what's your totally unrelated? But it's related. He opened the Drake. He opened the Drake pinata.
So there was at one point, and I'm sure, like most of the people that know me, I am very often mistaken for being a lot younger than I am. So when I was working at EB Games, I had these teenagers in one day, and they were like trying to hit on me, and this one guy was like, "Oh, don't pay attention." He's like, "Oh, my friend thinks he's hot shit because like he was on Degrassi," and he's just like, "Don't tell her that." I was like, "It's so embarrassing that I was on this hit TV show." I'm like, "You guys are 12. Like, get out of like, I used to watch Degrassi before you were born. Like, stop." Yeah, that's my Degrassi story. Is that I had some kid try to hit on me by being like, "So I was on Degrassi."
Canadian celebrities, they were all on Degrassi, ladies and gentlemen. That's how you start big. You want to get big as a Canadian? You get on Degrassi. All right. When is the Captain Marvel Gravity coming out? When's the Captain Marvel movie coming out?
March.
2 weeks before that. Oh, jeez. Is it? No, it's usually a week before the movie, right? Or the week of?
I don't know. The Gravity Feeds have a hard time coming out on time.
Oh. Fighting with My Family comes out this weekend too, doesn't it?
Oh, I thought that was a summer movie.
No, it's like within the next couple weeks, I think.
Damn, we promised to take Alexis to that.
Well, we didn't say when. All right. I'm not sure if I'm saying this guy's name right or if it's just a weird spelling, but I'm going to call him Alien anyway. What in your opinion is the best way to get into competitive, and how do I know if I'm ready? Okay, I'm going to answer the second part first. How do you know you're ready for competitive? You say, I'm going to a competitive tournament. That's how you know you're ready. I'm sorry. Step 1, it's a 2-step process. Step 1, I think I want to go to a competitive tournament. Step 2, go to the competitive tournament. Because that's the only way you're going to know if you're ready. Second, to get really ready, the best way to get ready and get competitive is to lose in competitive a lot. You have to take your butt. Got to take take your licks. Take your licks, boy.
Just don't wait as long as I did. I basically was like, I've been getting my butt kicked for the last 10 years. I'm better than this. I should do better than this.
But you
then I made top 16 in a couple of tournaments, and then I'm like, yeah, I'm done with this.
You should also listen to advice when advice is given, too.
Yeah.
She's bad at that. She's the worst.
Yeah, I don't listen.
It's like, you should do this. No, I don't want to do...
No, I only don't listen to advice when it comes from him. It's very specific.
Like, the person who's competitive in the house, trying to help. My goal is, like, I am not a person competing against her. I am on her side.
I'm just so naturally
and she fights with me.
Contradict you.
And the first fight is always, I need you to build me a team, but I want this figure on it. And it's always a figure who's got no chance in hell of being competitive. The first time, it was that Mr. Freeze. The first time you let me completely, like, build from scratch, it was the second year we went to Canadian Nationals. And you said, I want you to build me a team, but it's got to use this Mr. Freeze in it. And that was like the Batman 66
one?
No,
I know exactly what you're talking about. I didn't think I was the one that put him on the team.
Yeah, you're the one who forced me to put him on his team. You wanted to build a team with him. And then you did everything wrong.
Because I could have sworn my only thing was I wanted the Johnny...
No, I added Johnny Quick because I put Johnny Quick on every team when I built teams back then.
Okay. I don't remember that at all. I don't remember
I referred to Johnny Quick as a 5-damage grenade who blew himself up.
I think it was one of those things where it's like, hey, I found this really cool combo that works in the rules and is really awesome on paper. Make it work for me.
That's another thing you have a habit of doing. Yeah. It was like, pigeonhole this into a team.
This is a really cool mechanic, and the rules are letting me do it. Let's do it.
Mm-hmm. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. All right, but Jacob Marcus earlier asked, what's the best 108 points of a monster keyword? All right, so we're going to take those 8 points. You're going to put them aside, and those 8 points are either your Pin Pocket Tank or a X-Men student ID and Headmaster ID. So one of the two options is either a Pin Pocket Tank or a student and Headmaster X-Men ID card. And the other 100 points, and everybody is going to yell at me for this because I swear to God I'm the only person who loves this figure. 100-point Carnage.
I knew you were going there.
Of course I'm going to go there. He's 100 points. He comes with his Colossal Retaliation, which is a free action. Then after you're done with the free action of Colossal Retaliation, you have flurries to follow up with. And when you're done with all of that, you dropped a token when you retaliate.
I do have to admit, it's really, really priceless to see your opponent's face when they attack your Carnage and you're like, okay. And then they deal damage and they're like, why isn't it dead? It's like, it's not 10 points.
Yeah.
It's 100. Have fun with that.
Or even when you're maximizing your giant reach and they shoot at you a couple times and then you walk up with Dr. Frankenstein and heal him. After you've Colossal Retaliated. There was one of the wackiest things I ever did with the Carnage. It was against Asia and Canadian Nationals. And she had my Carnage down to like its second last. But the second last is a click just before the stop click. So she'd done damage to me, which meant I was able to trigger Colossal Retaliation if I could get it. So what I did was I pushed my Carnage with the Colossal Stamina, accepted the damage I was going to take, and I actually hit with the attack. Then I Colossal Retaliated with the Carnage now on his last click. Then I healed it twice with my Dr. Frankenstein's, healing it back to its first click, and then I attacked with the Pog I just generated with the Colossal Retaliation attack. I'm a terrible human being when it comes but I love that guy so much. So yes, 100-point Carnage. If you're not already running 100-point Carnage, if you are, okay, Tyler Spees had a lot of great success with 2 Gigantos, not a bad choice. Also, you could. It depends on what you need on the team. If you need some support, 60 points of Dr. Frankenstein is okay if you play with 2 of them, or just 1 Dr. Frankenstein and then add 70 more points from there. If you have a Goblin King, play him at 75 points. Now you've got prop. And Perplex, should you so choose. Dr. Frankenstein adds prop. If you want to keep it the 108, you could go and spend 105 points on a 75-point Goblin King, a 30-point Dr. Frankenstein, and 3 points on a student ID card. Amber, it looks like I just blew your mind. It's like, because I have this keyword up in her.
I wasn't paying attention.
I know you weren't. Just like I do.
I totally.
Your eyes totally glazed over because
I was completely.
You had the exact same face I have when you talk about Exile's keyword. All right. Fred wants to know, is Clix much like Warhammer, as in they're miniature figures you push across the map? What is the best resource to get yourself started? The website's a really good place. So that's HeroClix.com is always a reliable place. They have the rules and everything set up there. It is just a miniatures game, kind of like Warhammer, but it's more like a collectible card game. You get random packs of random figures, and they have different rarities, and you build them from there. But they're pre-painted, and each one comes with its own cards and stats and everything with it on the dial. So you don't have to buy a separate book to do it. Everything's kind of in the pack. So once you get an understanding of the rules, you just have to get that. Like a starter set is the best way to go. Earth X comes out on Wednesday, and that's going to have a starter set for it in the stores for sure. That's probably like your best go start playing HeroClix is get on their website, get their starter set. Starter set's going to come with some maps. Use the maps to play the game. Understand the rules and all that kind of stuff. What else? Would you suggest anything else for a new player?
No, I think that's one of the things. Also, try to find a place nearby or relatively close by that plays, runs tournaments. They don't even have to be competitive tournaments, just like casual weekly games. Because some of the best learning and practice you'll get out of the game is by playing with other people. Also, one of the only cautions I'd have to say is that the starter sets, which are absolutely fantastic to get into the game, are only sold twice a year.
Yeah.
And they're not regularly kept in stock.
Depending on the store you go to.
Yeah, so you may come across them. You may be able to find them, but if it is not the month that they came out, they're pretty hard to find. So that's why the website does have all the resources that you need, like rules, explanations, stuff like that. I think they have a link to a few rules videos done by another channel. And good kind of starting point there if you can't find the physical starter set to go with.
Mm. And, of course, because it's Fred asking, you could always just call up a couple friends that you have, one of which you met in college, and he happens to play HeroClix. You just be like, yo, dude, teach me how to play. And then I'll pass you off to Amber because she's a little less competitive than me.
And then we'll have you play Alexis.
Yeah.
That part was the joke.
She went 1 and 2 in a HeroClix tournament. Don't poo-poo her.
That's true. And she pulled 2 super rares.
Yeah, she's allowed to pull all of my packs from now on. All right. Next up, the Lord of Tai. What do you guys think the Infinity Gauntlet special object coming out will do? Are they adding a gauntlet along with the gems? That's interesting. Okay. All right. So what is that going to do? +2 stats, pick a power.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. It's going to be some sort of pick a power. Either a full-on pick a power or a limited, hey, pick power gem, pick time gem, pick space gem, and then these are the powers that you can pick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's what's going to happen. You're correct. All right, Nolan Destroyer Thor, non-prime, and con-exclusive Commissioner Gordon, Batman, 300 points, police team. You talked about me about this in person. It's good. It's interesting. It's give it a try. Tell me how it goes. That's really the crux of it, because both figures are very strong, and it's a lot of for those of you who watched Raw a couple weeks ago when Finn Balor got his chance at the title, there's a lot of meat on that team, let me tell you. So only the true wrestling fans will understand that one. Lots of beef on that team.
Lord of Tide does as Pauper allows uncommons, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So let me clarify this very. Oh, this is difficult. You see, for those of you who watch my show, Every Man for Everyone, I call that format Every Man for a number of reasons. One of which is Magic calls their all-common format Pauper, and that fits because Magic has a medieval-style fantasy theming to it. So I wanted to attach a HeroClix / superhero theming to it, and I thought Every Man was an appropriate one because there's that comic book series. I can't remember who. Like the entire details of the story, but basically the story was Lex Luthor creates a formula that allows anybody to become a superhero. It calls it the Everyman Project. So the Everyman Project is what I call it. Every man is capable of building a team that's competitive in this format because it's in all common format. And that was my goal is, people keep saying, well, this figure is going to be competitive in the format. It's like, that's cool. It's a 50-cent figure. Right? But then while I was doing this, another guy just kind of rolled with the Magic Pauper name and created his own extra format and created a whole circuit for it and everything like that. And that allows the use of commons and uncommons. Now, my format allows the use of fast forces and starters because that I feel is something everybody should be buying. And regardless of whether or not WizKids makes them good enough, I think those are figures that are good. But that said, the Pauper format does allow uncommons, yes, but my format does not, and I don't spend a lot of time talking about that format because that's their problem. I created Every Man. My goal was to talk about it when I created it as well and maintain the conversation and get those formats in. And I appreciate that those guys are running a format alongside. And it's a confusion that I have to accept because my idea is based off of Magic's Pauper format, and he just kind of went that extra step. And that causes a little bit of confusion. I'm cool with it existing. I'm just understand that I don't call mine Pauper for this very reason. Or for this type of reason. Because I also saw him start to call it Pauper right out the gates when I was coming up with Every Man, and I was still coming up with a name for it. So, anyway, there we go. All right, next up, Lone Lake wants to know Spider Hulk animal team ideas other than Throg. Well, Golden Age, I'm going to tell you to use Alyosha Craven. The one figure I ever want reprinted in HeroClix. Like, I wish one day. You know what? I think that's what I would do if I won Worlds at this point. Like, if they say no to Dr. Doom, like, fine, you're remaking Alyosha Craven. You don't think I would do it, do you?
It's like, don't design just reprint him. You don't redesign the dial, just reprint him.
Yeah, I wouldn't even So what we've had this style before. Yep, you're doing it again. You know what though? I might actually update the Pog set on it and add extra lions, and then they kind of spawn on their own and just make it OP as hell.
And have it actually come with a Guldiak and Pog.
Yeah, Guldiak. Yeah, there we go. And I'll be like, you got to print this now.
Make the Pog.
You know what? Now I'll just tell them to print the Pog. I'm never going to win Worlds, so I don't know why I talk about these things. Okay, but other than Throg, I mean, Throg's an obvious animal include nowadays. The animal keyword just got a couple really good ads from Earth X, I think.
A jump in.
I know the lizard. If anybody's sleeping on the lizard, wake up, because for 50 points he's pretty great. I haven't looked at Ox yet. Stegron. Also Devil Dinosaur. Anything dinosaur is great on animal teams. Amber is somewhere else. Gorgon. Gorgon's a really strong animal. He's got a goat head now, so
makes sense.
My best
he just had hooves.
My best advice when it comes down to it is when you go to HC Realms, use the advanced search, which is right under your little search bar in the units section, and just look up the animal keyword in the list of keywords and click modern, and that'll give you your strongest, or that'll give you an idea of everything that exists. Obviously, the Ninja Turtles all have animals, so there is that option. Just, you know what, I'm going to share this because it's kind of cool. It's like, there's 151 results when you click on modern and animal keyword. It's It's pretty nuts. So, like, just in Earth X alone, we got Lizard, Rhino, Spider's Man, the Black Panther, Stegron, Man, Wolf, and Gorgon. Like, that's just Earth X alone. And that's not even including the Spider's Man and the Black Panther from the starter set. We also have, there's an Iron Man with the animal keyword because he's the Spider Iron Man. Not a bad figure. It helped me do fairly well. Dinothor. I love just saying it. And Gertrude Yorkson Old Lake. You know, all of these. Like, just this, there's a lot of, look at the Colossals you get options of, too. I mean, we've already talked about Giganto and Namor, right? So, all things for consideration. 15. Oh, I love this Peter the Hunter. I love that figure so much. I think he's underrated vastly. I'm kind of shocked that the robot Minotaur has the animal keyword.
Well, he also has the robot keyword. So I mean, he's a robot.
But
Minotaur.
Is he? Stop. Stop. Or you can just do what the Catman do. I mean, King Shark's another one who's really made his bones in the animal keyword. So, yeah, all of these are really good options if you ask me. Apparently, AEW says I cannot watch Fighting with my family because I'm wearing Bullet Hut Club gear. I'm also wearing a Kenny Omega shirt, so I'm like banned from. I'm not. They'll like tackle me at the door at a WWE event dressed like this. No, they won't. It's not AEW gear. It is Bullet Club gear. I think they've made peace with the existence of the Bullet Club. Plus, the Bullet Club fans are attracted to Finn Balor. So, Andrew does go on to say there's not as much beef as in Andre the Giant Survivor Series team. Well, I do remember Brock Lesnar's that one year. Brock Lesnar had himself, Big Show, Nathan Jones, and 2 other big gnarly dudes. And then I think like all of them got FU'd at the time or AA'd by John Cena. Because Super Cena. Da-da-da-da. It's okay, nobody saw it happen.
That's alright. So, when we were...
I just had to get back in frame and do that smile. It just broke her.
After the Royal Rumble, so the next day I was going through my Facebook memories, and it was all of my, like, status updates from last year's Royal Rumble, and one of them was like, today I learned that John Cena won the won the Royal Rumble in 2008 and once again won it in 2013, which means that he will never win another Battle Royale because I'm not having any more children.
Royal Rumble?
Yeah.
My fertility has caused...
So it happened to be that the two times that John Cena won the Royal Rumble was the 2 years that we had kids. So I was just like, I'm like, yep, so he's never winning ever again because I'm not having any more children.
Da, 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 da. I'm having no more kids.
Oh gosh.
All right. I think that about wraps it up for today. We had a lot of fun, a lot of giggles.
Talked about a lot of stuff that wasn't HeroClix because that's how we do.
I mean, that's what the Married Lab's all about. This is why nothing gets done between the two of us. We're supposed to be talking about HeroClix, guys, and we're not talking about HeroClix. But on that note, I do want to remind everybody that, like I said, I'm going to be filming Move and Attack with Tom Kerr. So check out the link below if you want to submit any questions for it. If you want to support us at patreon.com/marriedwithclicks, and a little bit of support helps. And you know, $5 up, you would have been allowed to have a call-in portion of this and yap at us, and we would have put you on screen and found a way to embarrass you, I'm sure. As well, I want to thank our sponsor. Thank our sponsors over at MajesticCCG.com, your source for all things HeroClix. Check out the Apex Insiders premium portion of their website where you get access to some of the great minds in the game of HeroClix. It's $3 a month, great players saying great things, and I'm been tasked to write an article on the free site talking about the Everyman format coming up soon, so keep your eyes open for that. If you want to look at some of my other nonsense, check out my predictions on the WWE clicks that I put on the website as well. You might have to go back in the archives on that one somewhere on the way back. I don't know how he archives anything. Anyway, On that note, thank you guys for watching. Amber, I love you. Thank you for coming. Mwah. You guys have yourselves a wonderful evening. Look at that. I even got her all cuted out on the show. So have a good night, everybody.